Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucci, joined as always by my fellow role-playing gamer guy, the boy.
Hey, that was kind of a fail.
Yeah, that was like, I wanted to make it real snappy. And yeah, regardless, this is the Two Nerds Podcast. Before we get started, if you could give a clicky-clack to the myriad links in the description, buy up all of Super Blizzard, Shining Wasato, Bandcamp, Rama, because Let's Get Hardcore is our theme music, and he gave us that for freezy. So, otherwise, you can buy my books and read them and tell me how great they are. And then buy more for your friends.
Yes, do that. This is where normally I would be like, or tell us how terrible they are. But no, they're actually very good.
First one's not the best.
It is the freshman effort of the lot.
It is, but it picks up after that, and they're short reads. But anyway, we're not talking about my books technically today. We are talking about role-playing game characters because, listener, not much has happened this past week.
Yeah, last week we did sort of a grab bag whatever we've been doing for the last little while podcast, and to be fair, we've been doing the exact same shit. Basically, all I've done all week is play Batman Arkham Knight.
Well, and I, to be fair, closed one eFed and opened another. And that's a lot of doing. If you don't know about the kind of doing that goes into an eFed, an Internet Wrestling Role-Playing Federation, we do have a podcast on what it's like to run an eFed. So just check somewhere on our playlist for that. But today, what we're talking about is the other thing we've been doing, which is role-playing. We've talked a lot about running a game. We've gone through D&D Monsters and talked a lot about that. I believe we've spoken with Brandy about some of these topics as well. And we touched a little bit on player characters in our big player character podcast. But that, upon re-listening to it, that was more about video game characters. And it was approximately a year ago.
So, we felt it was time to, one, revisit the concept, and two, focus more on the actual pen and paper role-playing game characters. The characters themselves, the fun things we've done with them, and the process by which we create characters, because we've been discussing it a lot recently, and have discovered that we create characters very differently.
Yeah, there are a lot of nuances to it in either case, but I think it's worth discussing at length.
And
if you don't, just hit that like button and close the video. That's fine. I respect you.
Yeah, not every video we're going to do is going to be for everybody. But I think I'll start this time.
Sure, go for it.
The process by which I create characters is actually pretty devastatingly simple, but can be challenging depending on how creative I'm feeling. My characters, above and beyond all else, need one very specific thing for me to be able to roleplay them effectively in D&D or the Cult role-playing game system or whatever we're playing. I need what I call an internal life. That sounds really, really pretentious. Essentially what it means is I need something that is happening with my character regardless of what's happening in the story. Usually it's a personality quirk or something that they're trying to accomplish internally, something they're trying to come to terms with, or something that drives them, that allows me to essentially think in character while other stuff is happening.
About that character's dilemmas. Like you played a wizard who was an addict.
Yeah, I played a wizard who was a severe addict, and a lot of his early struggles in the campaign were about basically how to get his fix and how to get away with getting his fix because he kind of wanted to keep it on the down low. And he became a much better person throughout the campaign, but he never stopped being a drug addict. I played another wizard sort of thing who was a violent psychopath, first off. And secondarily, he was delusional, severely delusional. He had a bunch of inanimate objects that he would use as like implements of magic, what he would use to channel his spells through, and they were actually magical artifacts that had abilities of their own. He thought they were alive and talked to him. Now, this is not something that I filled the table with chatter of them talking to each other. It's just whenever anyone was doing anything else, he was in his head talking to those things. And that's all I need. If I can get that one central thing for a character, I can make pretty much any character work. But I need that. I need something to be doing in my head whenever anything else is happening. That way I don't get sucked out of the game.
Now, can you, repeat it?
What do you mean?
Could you do the same one more than once?
If it's a good, a meaty subject, as it were, yes. Mm-hmm. But it'd have to have been some time, first off. And it would have to be something that I could try a new spin on.
Sure.
Or because otherwise it's just going to end up confusing the shit out of me. I learned this because when I was a kid, a young role-playing game gentleman, I played a lot of very fucking similar characters. A lot of wizards. A lot of snarky asshole wizards. I played, fucking uncountable numbers of those. Because, to be fair, they died.
Well, that's your go-to personality, I find.
Because it's my real personality, snarky asshole. With magic power stapled on, which is just double plus good for me. But I played a lot of them, and they had a lot of the same motivations. Acquire arcane knowledge, acquire as many spells as possible, research my own spells, get magical might. That was their internal thing. They were always thinking of, different concepts for spells, or different, ways of turning a situation towards gathering some sort of lost lore or lost knowledge. That was their thing, internally. I did a bunch of those, and eventually I can't do that anymore. If I play a wizard, even if he's a snarky asshole, he needs to be about something else. There needs to be some other internal conflict going on, because that one's gone. It's burnt. I can't do it anymore.
I do have to ask this. When you were playing your monk character, Dolphex,
first big character I played in one of his campaigns when we first met.
What was his internal life?
His was actually surprising for me because I, as you know, I wanted to use him since you were a new DM. I hadn't played with you much. I wanted to use that character as big a departure as I could.
For the sake of the listener, a new DM for you, not I'd been DMing for years.
Yeah, no, you were a new DM for me, and I wanted to make a big departure with this character. So a lot of his internal thing was, if you remember, he was very much at peace with himself.
Yeah, basically. He had a lot of that Goku flair because he was kind of, he didn't care. He was comfortable in pretty much any situation.
Mm-hmm. A lot of his internal stuff was worry, actually. Not worry for himself, but, he was always worried for his companions. He always wanted to make sure they were happy, and always wanted to make sure they had, they had a place to be, some food. Always, wanted to make sure they were taken care of. Always wanted to make sure they weren't fretting over much or scared about anything. He actually was very much the team mom in his head. I'd like to think that came across in the way I played him, but
Oh yeah, I think so. I wouldn't have... Well, I didn't know I would have been looking for it, or I should have been looking for it at the time, so I didn't. But that makes sense. It holds water.
Yeah. I think the last wizard I played was very much that archetypal wizard. The thing that I think of when I think a very archetypal, very much wizard. That I am about gathering the arcane knowledge and getting ultimate arcane power guy. That was probably Graham.
And Graham was the one I squashed.
Yeah, Graham was the one you fucking double murdered.
Well, the dice double murdered. I didn't help, but...
No, well, you were balancing a campaign around one of Brandy's characters, which means sometimes my characters are completely fucked over. Look,
well,
it's not her fault she rolls nothing but good rolls.
We'd done some rules modification, and it was only a 2-person campaign, and those were still kind of new to me.
It was hard to balance,
Yeah.
and Brandy's character was, blatantly pretty OP. And not through any... She could have sucked, but she just happened to always roll well. Her character was built around, I do really well as long as I roll pretty goddamn high, and that's just Brandy. That's just what she does. She just rolls good.
See, now, on the flip side for me, I have discovered, and really only recently, that I actually need 3 things for a good character. Thing 1 is the hook. which is a lot like your internal life, or rather, your internal life could be a hook. I need something that's like, that makes me smirk, that makes me go, yeah, or really makes me want to explore the character. For example, I have a spreadsheet. Because I do spreadsheets with shit because it makes my life easier so I don't have to try to remember things. I can just see them writ before me.
Yeah, he was nice enough to make me a spreadsheet for my characters once because look, alright, real talk, listener, my day job, I make spreadsheets all day. That's a big part of my actual job, is I work with Excel a lot. So I don't have the energy to do that shit when I get home.
But, okay, for example, here's a character that never really came to fruition. Nicholas Gannon, who was a necromancer and a mob boss. The hook for him was that I based him off of the There Will Be Brawl Gannon. If you haven't seen There Will Be Brawl, fantastic little video series. I definitely recommend checking it out. But, that let me step into the shoes of his accent. What would this character do in these scenarios? And, I had a lot to explore there. He came with the mafia thing, etc., etc. The second thing I need is motivations. These are sort of, like goals, and motivations can be reset pretty frequently. And that's honestly the case, because my second one is goals. But motivations are more why they do what they do, and not necessarily what they're trying to accomplish. With Mafia Ganon here, he was... I actually have these switched on my spreadsheet, and I'm going to fix that. He was looking for a cure. A little bit of his backstory that nobody ever found out about was he had a daughter, I believe it was, because this game lasted maybe 2 sessions.
Maybe. I think 1.5 really would be more accurate.
Honestly. But he had a daughter who was supernaturally ill. And maybe even dead or something, I don't remember. And he couldn't, even though he was a necromancer, he didn't know how to bring her back. And so he was trying to find, through all the, errata of the universe, how to save her. Now, the goals, which are the short-term things, which change more frequently than the motivations. Motivations usually stay pretty firm. His goals were to collect various bits of Arcana. Those are there, they serve a dual purpose. One, I always know what I want to fall back on. If it gets downtime, that's what my character can sit back and think about and go, alright, what do I need to be doing with this? What's our next step? So that if something happens where, the plot train gets reset or crashes off the rails or whatever, at least I have a path for my character. And I don't feel lost. So he was looking for all kinds of, arcane knowledge and artifacts and whatnot to try to solve this conundrum of his in order to save his daughter. Now, not all of my characters have these 3 things, because like I said, I only recently figured this out. This year.
Yeah, it's very recent. Whereas I've known my central need in a character for a long time. Pretty much since... I don't think it was right after I met you, but it was soon after I met you. I looked into how I make characters and determined what my big pivot point was. Mm-hmm. But before I met you, I didn't really know. I think that's probably why I ended up playing the same character so much. I kind of wish, looking back, I really wish I hadn't played so many of that character, because I had a lot of fun, but I'd like to be able to play that. I'd like to be able to use that motivation again, and it's boring. I can't.
Right. No, I completely understand. And this kind of moves into another subject I wanted to cover. I personally, right now, in this moment that this is being recorded, this is July 6th in the year of our Lord Cthulhu 20,015. That's the star date for those of you who've been with us for a while. I'm having a transition of sorts from one style of character into another. I'm not sure what that other is yet, so it's really hard for me to make characters right now, but we have both the means and I have the desire to roleplay a lot more.
Which is so nice, because, look, I love video games, I love books, I love movies, I love television. Pen and paper role-playing is my favorite thing to do. It is the best.
So, I find myself in a position where I'm making a lot of characters, and I keep finding they're not hitting the mark. What I was doing before, and this spreadsheet is a great way for me to look back and reference that and figure that out. What I was doing before, I had done a lot of big, bashy, awesome sauce motherfuckers who did cool shit and usually wrecked shit in combat.
And we're usually very strong.
Very strong and very, very badass stereotype.
Like, he started playing Conan the Barbarian at a certain point in various genres, but strong, usually very canny, because that's the thing Conan is. For all the people who've only seen the Arnold movie, Conan's actually also very canny and smart and tricksy. Very, strong, canny, confident, big dudes. You've never read a single Conan book, correct?
I haven't. I've seen the first Arnold movie, and I've seen the Jason Momoa movie, which I really liked.
Which is much, and this is gonna sound like blasphemy, but fuck it, I don't care. I fully stand by this opinion. That's a much better adaptation of Conan the Barbarian than the Arnold movies. It's just much better, because it catches the wiliness of Conan.
Well, and and I think where the frustration comes from is that they're supposed to be going back to Arnold.
Yeah, God, I fucking hate that so much.
Like, that movie was good enough that it could have launched a new breath of life into the franchise, and I'm really disappointed that it didn't. But, I digress.
I helped.
Yeah. So I played that, be it in a Star Wars campaign or a fantasy campaign or what have you. And I played specifically Paladins Waiting to Fall.
Accidentally for a long time.
Sure, I mean, it wasn't like I set it up like, oh man, I can't wait for this guy's morals to bottom out and he just becomes the saddening. But I would set them up in a way such as that it was just
He would make Paladins on the edge.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And look, I'm his DM, and I'm not that guy. I don't intentionally try and make Paladins fall. That's not how I get my rocks off. I actually kind of hate it, because usually it blows the character up. But, I'm not gonna cheat. I'm not gonna change the universe if the Paladin doesn't fall. If it happens, it happens, and it just seems to happen a lot to you.
And I respect that. That's how I roll. And, that got depressing. Like, that started to leak out into my regular life where I was like, man, I just can't do it anymore. Right now, I've been playing more light-hearted characters.
Yeah.
Although my most recent one is burdened with glorious purpose.
That's your own doing, and what?
That's your own doing.
Yeah, it is my own doing. You're the one who made the characters. No, I do the doings.
But I'm having a hard time transitioning to finding out what my new niche is. Because it's not like I played big motherfuckers and paladins on the edge for a long time.
You usually played the party bard, right?
I was the snarky rogue. I would get into trouble. You were the snarky wizard, I was the snarky rogue.
We would have gotten so much shit.
We would have, most of the people, most of the characters my characters got along with back in the day were also ready to get into some shit. Now, this isn't the rule, entirely across the board, jackass rogue, fucking paladin. No, it's not like that.
Whereas, as a young role player, my chart is pretty much fucking wizard.
But it is a very identifiable phenomenon, especially in the characters I played for a longer period of time. As are those 3 tenets I required. I certainly didn't go in knowing that I was going to do those, but if I look back, those 3 factors were present in those characters who did have staying power. But now I don't know I don't know where I'm going.
I went through a similar changeover a couple of years ago. I went from mostly lighthearted, if not like lighthearted in that they are comedic characters, lighthearted in that they don't take things too seriously, sort of guys. I played a lot of them. I'm sure you remember a bunch of them.
Yeah.
To very pragmatic, mostly very stern problem solvers.
You know what? And yeah, I think I can notice where that happened in your role playing history. I want to say the biggest, well, really, honestly, the turning point was the space between one character you played in one of Brandy's games in my Colt Regan setting. Books available in the link below. Who is actually in the third book.
Perhaps it's true.
But who was a snarky telepath, right?
Yep.
And a sniper, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was, but he definitely is a jokester, almost to the point of being rude.
Sometimes over the point, like if he knows that he can get away with it with that person, if he has a camaraderie with somebody, he will just be a straight up asshole to him.
For the sake of comedy.
Yeah.
And then, like, the next character you made for Brandy's shit was this hard-nosed ex-cop who was just trying to do the right thing the quickest way possible.
Because he just no longer had the patience for doing it the long and official way. Paperwork was no longer a thing he had the time for.
And that was pretty much the turning point. I mean, I wouldn't say everyone you've played since then has been like that.
But
certainly.
that's the line between Jim and Miles is the turning point in. And Miles is really the best version, the biggest archetype for that, because he's not loose cannon cop who doesn't play by the rules. He's old cop who has no more time for the rules. It's time to do justice now.
Right.
And that's kind of my go-to now. Is just very stern. Sometimes they'll crack a joke, but it's usually very dry, wry humor more than overt jokiness. Problem solvers. Even the characters I'm playing in any current campaigns are mostly like shades of that. If you think about it, like there's one character who's funny by virtue of the fact that he's secretly a bumbling idiot. But he believes himself to be a stern sort of problem solver type person who gets things done. He just also happens to be a bumbling idiot outside that bumble.
I don't know. Your ice cream man. He's pretty much the old stereotype.
I'm trying for
trying to give it some legs again.
Yeah, trying because his thing is like so deeply ridiculous.
Now, I mean, for the sake of the listener, I just mentioned that one of your characters is an ice cream man. Why don't you describe this gloriously ginger individual for us?
Edward Fortescue he's in a sci-fi setting. He actually is a dropout from a college of what are essentially cyber, like a hacker army. In the setting,
hacker wizard army.
Hacker wizard army. In the setting, there's been, in this section of this universe, there's been essentially what amounts to a great goo event.
That's a trope.
That's had a cap put on it. Like, the nanites are under control, but they're also suffusing a lot of the setting. So if you're someone who's good at computers, you can get access to them and do a lot of crazy bullshit.
And it also helps keep the population of the nanomachines under control.
Because you give them a job to do and they stop replicating.
Or you blow them the fuck up.
Just to clear them out. But the training's very hard, very difficult, very taxing. So I made a character who dropped the fuck out because he was too lazy. And he became a complete waste of all potential. Because he also has incredibly high base stats. He has a lot of potential. He's like a genius. He's just far too lazy. And now he runs an ice cream truck. Literal ice cream truck called the Tasty Mobile. Out of his friend's spaceship.
His friend, who is a short order cook, who travels the world, this is Brandy's character, travels the galaxy. In
what amounts to an intergalactic taco truck.
Yeah.
So...
I love this campaign. It's very near and dear to my heart. It's a little harder to conceive of things for than some of the other shit I've run, but I do enjoy playing it.
And that is Ed's internal thing. His internal life is a couple different parts. One is genuine fondness and concern for those around him. Not the same way Doe was. Not like Team Mom. More like, well, I mean, not to put too fine a fucking point on it, but more like Ron Weasley. He's always wanting the best for the people around him, even if he's not necessarily the one best equipped to handle things.
Right.
And secondarily, it is trying to find the easiest way to accomplish any given thing.
Yeah, just pure laziness. I appreciate that.
Like, there was a thing where we had to climb over this old rickety rope bridge, and instead of doing that, I told the nanites to hold the bridge up so I could just walk across.
Which required some high rolls, and you managed it, showing off, his high stats and all that shit, his high potential.
Brilliant but lazy.
I didn't mean to do this, but last adventure we had, you acquired a mentor.
Who whipped him into shape.
Yeah, he's a harsh taskmaster, and he doesn't brook with any of his bullshit, and he tells it like it is. It's fun. It's not a dynamic I've ever had the opportunity to engage in with somebody before, and it's pretty fun. But other than that, the last character before that, Laz, he was a bit more of the old snarky wizard stereotype too.
And yeah, you're right. This has been me. These last couple characters for your campaigns has been me trying desperately to recapture that ability to play those guys.
Yeah. Well, I think you've been doing a good job. I mean, it seems like you get into both pretty easily, and Laz has a lot of backstory to get into, and I think Ed has a lot of potential for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not for nothing. It seems like you're doing a fine job of it.
Well, thanks for the compliments.
Well, hold on. Let me see if I can frame it more like bitter jealousy. Well, it seems like you're having no problems.
There you go.
Good for you.
I wish I had more advice for you, friendo.
No, yeah, I understand. I'm not going to waste the listeners' time bitching and bemoaning. But it is a curious activity. Like, when you made that transition, did you know that's what you wanted to play now, or was it just like a natural reaction of how you were?
I think it's actually more a function of the games we've been playing.
Okay.
For a long time, if we weren't playing a modern supernatural game, we were playing something with the cult system that was sort of in that vein. Or at least I was.
Sure.
If you think about me as a player character, before Laz and Ed, who are both sci-fi guys,
yeah,
so they're scientists sort of thing. Science wizards, really, the both of them. Because they don't do science, they do science! But, think about the games you've actually DM'd. I haven't played a fantasy game in a long time.
No, it has been a long time, hasn't it?
So, I was playing in a setting that's largely, as the Colt Regan books are, noir. And when I think noir detective, that's what I think. I think very pragmatic, very the Dame Moore read sort of that person. But since I'm not a terribly prosaic person by nature, instead of being the kind of guy who waxes philosophical in his head about the nature of of his city and how people are awful or any other noir trope of very much Byronic sort of brooding over his situation.
Mm-hmm.
I go the other route that those types of main characters do, and I'm just very pragmatic.
So, like, the difference between perhaps Marv and Hardigan, is that Bruce Willis's character?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that...
Because...
Or perhaps more articulately Dwight and Hardigan. He had a lot more of the colorful...
Yeah, and Dwight's very much that, this city is blah 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 blah, and Hardigan's more like, oh, this guy's a raper guy. I'm just gonna yank his penis off. and that's much more my character speak.
Yeah. I see that adapting to the environment you're in, and perhaps that's why I've had such a hard time solidifying character base myself. Is that the games I'm in, we keep jumping violently from situation to situation because we were in so many of those modern supernatural mystery solving sort of situations for so long.
We weren't really in like a bunch of different campaigns, so much as it was one or two campaigns that went on for a long time.
Yeah. It was the same situations cropping up, regardless of the circumstances, and I just got tired of that shit.
And I can understand that.
Much in the way you said earlier, you don't make your own spreadsheets because that's what you do for a living. I was self-employed at that time. I was just writing, so solving mysteries and doing noir shit was kind of my job. I was a little tired of it.
Which that makes perfect sense.
But I do look forward to the future. Hopefully the near future, when I understand what that is. What characters I'll be building from here on out, because nothing's quite like looking back at a character, whether you've finished the campaign they were in or not, and just appreciating what you've done with them, and marveling at how they got to where they are, and the interactions you had with other players, especially.
Definitely, like going back to Miles. This is objectively me kind of, I don't know about failing as a player character, but like this was a failure. At some point something failed. I don't know who or what is responsible, but Miles broke. He was, a justice person who wanted to do right. Eventually he became an evil guy. Like basically capital E, evil, because he was tired. He was just tired of all the people getting in his way and stopping him from doing the right thing. So he just started fucking murdering anyone who got in his way. He became the Punisher. Yeah. Only worse.
Yeah, only without as strong of a moral compass. Well, I mean, you can call it a failure of the character, but it fit his species because he was a white, an undead.
And in the Colt Regan universe, the longer they're dead, the less moral undead become, the less they have a connection with that human part of themselves. And I was trying very much to portray that. Unfortunately, it did end that campaign.
Sure. But we had a lot of laughs along the way. We had a good time. I had a revolving door of like 50 different characters, as I was trying to find somebody who could couple with Miles well.
And you eventually did.
We did. And in our little post-game headcanon, he still visits him on his little houseboat. How you doing, buddy? You holding up okay? I brought you some zingers. I know you can't digest them, but, the flavor's there.
But, yeah, actually, thinking on it, Ed and Laz are actually two very good examples of how I have to put a spin on the wizard archetype now. I have to give them something else to be doing.
Right. And honestly, I think the gateway into you being able to wizard that well again, because it seems like we're talking about like, this happened, and then Boy played this character Miles, and then he was so noir and serious forever, except for these two, well, as I'm about to mention, three characters who were, the same stereotype again, or the archetype, I probably should say. But there was a period of several years and several characters between here that,
that we're just not mentioning, because, yeah. I mean, to be fair, look, listener, I know we're only 30 minutes into the podcast, but we ain't got all night.
Yeah. Well, does it really bear talking about that time you played a cool-headed ranger? I mean...
Mm-hmm. Or the time I played a this, or the time I played a that.
Sure. I think the big transition character was the one that was kind of in the middle of the road between those two archetypes you played the most, and that was... oh, shit. His name just left my head. It was in the Final Fantasy IX campaign I ran for you guys.
Paxton?
Paxton, that's it. It's a weird name, because it was a predominantly Asian setting.
His last name was Gaikutsu.
Well, yeah, but so Paxton is like... Not the first name that comes to mind when I'm thinking of...
He was also British.
Yes, he had a British accent.
There was actually a reason for that.
Yeah, in world and everything. But I digress. He had a lot of the pragmatism, because this was the addict wizard.
Yeah, he was very pragmatic. He wanted to solve whatever problem it was, because usually that problem was between him and his fucking fix. And he started off as a slimy, awful person.
But he did sort of grow into that, that wizard seeking power, that wizard, trying to learn more so that he could do the right thing.
And it was so he could do the right thing, and that I think you're right. I think that's the bridge, because back in the day it was for knowledge's sake.
Right.
It was so I know this information.
Right.
Now they need a reason for it.
Sure.
Which I honestly think makes better characters, and it's kind of shitting on old me, but he was kind of a douchebag, so.
Well, and there's something to be said as well, because we haven't mentioned this as a method to create characters, but I've made dozens like this. I'm sure you have as well. Just going, I want to play a fucking dwarf shaman. Brrr, stats. Let's go.
I did that with recently one of the first fantasy campaigns that I've played in a long time is with one of the listener as our DM, and I played a wizard first. Just very much his whole shtick was that I was playing a hobbit as a hobbit, like to the nines. I had a fucking fob-ass pocket watch. I ate second breakfast. I was playing a hobbit. That was his internal life, was hobbity thoughts. But then I wanted to play a dwarf berserker, the barbarian from 5th edition, because I read those mechanics, and specifically the frenzy mechanics, and not the totem warrior side of barbarian, the other side.
Not Udir, Tryndamere.
Yeah, the Tryndamere side of things, and I loved it. Those were great mechanics that sounded really fun and really cool to play. So I just fucking rolled up a character and came up with a personality from there.
Well, even your hobbit that you played was randomly generated.
Yep.
So, that's...
I literally, and that continually made me laugh as I was playing the character, because my stereotype is wizard. Plays a wizard, does wizard things.
Yeah.
And I rolled race, class, background, everything randomly, and I got like a sage wizard.
Well, there's always that joke we have that you and Brandy are hobbits because you're hill folk, and I'm a dwarf because I would rather be buried deep in the mountains tinkering with something. So you rolled a halfling wizard with the sage background, and it's just, I rolled with the boy.
I rolled with the boy. This was entirely randomly generated. My dice want me to play this character, so I did for a while, and then I got bored of him, as you might expect.
Well, yeah. I think maybe the current character hurdle I'm trying to get over. I might look into some random generation and see what it brings me. Maybe not as a definite, but I've learned my lesson about committing to something before I read the entire ticket recently. But
yeah, you did.
Or relearned, I should probably say. But there is something to be said for that. I remember back in the day when a lot of Palladium games were being thrown past my nose. I balked at the idea of randomly generating a character, and it's still not my preferably. But
yeah, no, I did it as an experiment.
Sure, but it's it bears.
At the very least, it's good for getting ideas out. Like, if you roll up a character and go, oh, actually, this is really cool, except for this one thing that's shitty. And unless your DM's a huge douchebag, change that shitty thing, and there you go, good character.
Right.
And, certain people on the internet and various people in my real life have been proponents of, in D&D, instead of you roll a set of 4d6 dice and take out the lowest one and then assign your stats based on what you want from the pool you get. Sometimes you roll multiple sets, what have you. There have been proponents of you roll 3d6 in dropping none of them. That's the number you get, and in order. If you roll an 18, first thing, your strength's an 18, you're probably going to be some sort of fighter character. If you want to play a wizard but you roll a fucking 8 intelligence, well, guess what? You're not fucking playing a wizard. Sorry.
Or you're the worst wizard.
There's something to be said for that, because it's making do with what you have, and it allows for it makes you have to be flexible.
Right. Well, and it was how it was back in the 70s when this was first getting started as a hobby. That's how you made characters, because it was for a fucking war minis game, and it didn't matter what your stats were. You were just generating people.
And when they died, because they would, because Gygax ruled back then, and as much as I love Gary, he was an asshole DM.
Still would have loved to have played under.
Oh yeah, I would gladly have fed characters through that wood chipper anytime he wanted.
But yeah, so it didn't matter back then. Obviously, things have changed over time, and I would say largely for the better. I'm not a huge fan of the preset stats. I feel it.
Yeah, like
it loses some of the
newest
whimsy.
edition with like you get these are your stats. You can assign them as you wish, but you get this many 12s, this a 17, this 11. You get the same stats everyone else gets. You just get to rearrange them. That's not my thing.
Well, and I say that, but the Colt system is point buy.
Point buy is different because everyone, it's different because while in point buy, everyone has an equal playing field. But with certain races, you can get better stats
Sure.
and all that. But everyone has an equal playing field. You can make what you like. Whereas, so you can have two characters with wildly different stat delineations. You can have a character with like 3 8s and like a bunch of 2s.
Right.
Or what have you. But in D&D, when they give you that preset set list, no. Everyone has the exact same stat delineations. They're just in different places.
Well, and some of them do offer, plus or minus this here.
And that's
there.
a much better system. I might take that up. I would take that up before I took the fixed setup.
What
And,
I was,
go ahead.
What I was talking about more was that there is something about taking out those dice and rolling them and seeing what the dice gods grant you.
Which I don't know why you do that. That's
No, yeah, that's a great. I mean, okay, like the first time I rolled stats in forever, you were there. You watched as I rolled a series of 13s and 1 9.
He is the statistical median. He rolls Midland always. Midland to bad.
I'm gonna make my fair amount of like good high impact rolls, but
usually you can be counted upon to roll decent. So you've started making characters built around rolling decent.
yeah, like with like a couple of specialized things with ridiculous bonuses in them and making do with not doing so well in other shit. And I've always been like that.
Whereas I roll pretty well. I mean, I don't know what the deal is. When I roll dice, so long as it's for a role-playing game, I'm like not terribly good at rolling craps or whatever. When I roll dice, they come up higher than average. I am about like a standard derivation above the average.
Whereas Brandy just rolls the maximum number on die pretty much every time she throws it.
If it comes up on say a D20, if it comes up below a 15, that's kind of a marketable day. Like you should probably put that on a calendar somewhere.
Right.
And like, trust us, listener, Brandy's not a sad enough human being to cheat at role-playing games.
Well, even then, I've watched her roll.
Yeah, we've watched her roll.
I bought her dice.
We've had her use other people's dice. We've had her use, and to be fair, other people's dice take about 5 or 6 rolls, and then they're just her dice again. Mm-hmm. She's just absurdly lucky.
But yeah, there is something to be said for those alternate means of generation and the ideas that can spring forth from it. I don't always want to use a randomly generated table, but if in the middle of character creation I'm like, you know what, I don't care what color my lightsaber is. For example, if I were to play a Star Wars RPG, I actually have a die that's white, yellow, red, blue, green, and purple.
So he just rolls that, and that's what it is. Yeah. Whereas for me, that's very fucking important. That says a lot about who your character is.
Well, gosh, yeah. I mean, like, I would definitely pick, but if I didn't care,
right?
There's no harm in a random table now and then, or just to randomly create a character and see what the fuck you come up with, or to challenge yourself as a role player. Roll those stats in order, 3d6, drop nothing.
I've tried that. I ended up with a set that no DM would ever accept. because they didn't see me roll it. I rolled 3d6 in order and got 4 16s, an 18, and a fucking 14.
Yeah, I do that kind of shit. And I'm like, well, my character is all force. And, well, except for that 5 in wisdom, so it's a fucking winner. I would like a helmet and
A drool mop.
Yeah, drool mop. If we could, that would be keen. If my clothing could not have anything dangerous like buttons or zippers, that would be especially good. Velcro exclusively. I'm not that bad. Like I roll just poorly enough to not do what I meant to do.
Not quite. Almost, though. Unless you're playing like one of your... And this is some sort of strange magic in that whenever you're playing one of your ridiculous beef mans that you had been playing for a while,
yeah.
You roll amazing. Like...
When I need to.
Yeah, on Maul, for instance, the big... the biggest example of that is a orc.
Warrior.
Yeah, warrior. I suppose is the easiest way to explain that. This is the one who caused me to realize that he was playing Conan the Barbarian. But you just, like, you roll midland until it's time to fuck shit up. And then it's just, bam, 6, 6, 6, 6.
Yeah.
Just nothing but max his, as I put it, because he rolls a set of, usually his main set of dice is a set of Cthulhu branded dice, so the biggest number on all the dice is a Elder Star. So it's just, it's completely midland until battle happens, or until it's time to get serious, and then I see nothing but Elder Stars for the rest of the session.
Let's break out the fuck dice. I like those dice. They fast became my favorite. I have a whole little pencil box full of dice, but those are pretty much the only ones I use, unless I'm rolling stats.
I use my Elvish dice, usually.
Yeah.
Except for the D4, because it's the backwards D4, where you're supposed to read the one that comes up on the bottom. I fucking hate those.
Yeah.
I hate those D4s.
I don't have any preference for or against. It's whatever.
I do. I hate them.
So, we've covered the random character generation. We've covered the sort of hooks that you and I feel we need to make characters in an ideal situation.
Right.
Slopping shit together for mechanics reasons, rule of cool kind of stuff. What do you think? What do you think there's left to cover, my friend? Other than just sharing stories about how awesome our characters are.
Which, I mean, literally, we don't have all night. But
I'm sorry, you couldn't hear me laughing. It was very wheezy, but I was laughing.
I think an interesting question would be, what makes you enjoy a character more than being able to play them, more than needing to.
What makes them cross that line from perfectly playable into this was one of my mains, as it were.
Yeah.
That's something we could touch on very, very briefly, just long enough to mention. I don't think, with like one notable exception, I don't think either of us have ever had that character that we take to other people's games.
No.
Like, I'm playing so-and-so again.
No, I'll do that in play-by-post role-playing, like eFetting.
Sure.
But
when it comes to, like, role-playing, it's not like, oh, you're starting up a D&D game? Oh, cool, I'll just re-roll Garthnax.
Yeah, I've never been that guy.
No, me either. I know a lot of guys on the internet who are, not personally, but I read forums.
That's just not like
I want to make a different dude.
I'm here to pretend to be a new guy. Thanks. Look, I'm playing pretend as an adult. I'd like to get my money's worth. Thank you.
Well, and it fucks up with my continuity in my head.
Yeah, like how did they get here? When does this take place in between
now and then? Why is he level 1 again? What's going on?
I'm such a continuity nerd. I can't handle it.
Yeah. Me too. Continuity will make or break something for me. It's probably the biggest reason I got into My Little Pony was a strong sense of continuity. I digress again.
I did not hope this time.
No, this was all me. On purpose, even. What makes a character go from playable to
one of the hallmarks.
Yeah, one of
that makes it go from like a character. Oh yeah, I played that one thing that one time. That wasn't really a huge deal. To even if it was only one session, I played this one guy. I only got him for one session, but I fucking love the character. I want to play him again.
It's one of two things for me, and sometimes these two things don't coincide. Even if they're there, it doesn't count. It's either the reaction to the people at the table around me. If they're really digging my character, that helps me forge better stories. Because they want to interact with this character, we want to be a party together, so those memories are going to be so much stronger. Because it goes from, I did this awesome shit when I rolled these dice and a cool thing happened, and it goes from, we had this cockamamie fucking plan, and I can't believe we all managed to roll the dice to make that shit work. That was the big turning point for my Star Wars character, Zoot, who was a Zabrak soldier at the time. He eventually became a bounty hunter.
Whose full name was Zoot Halo.
Zoot Alhor, actually.
Zoot Halo!
But I just got done playing Chalupa the Hutt, so y'all can judge me all you want. But I think the big turning point for that character, I love telling the story about when we were in that huge firefight and I crashed what was essentially a...
he crashed a shuttle into another shuttle.
Yeah.
What is essentially an APC, an armored personnel
APC,
character, into another... But it was Star Wars, so it was a shuttlecraft.
That was cool, but that was just a lot of good rolls and a couple good ideas.
And a good plan.
And a good plan. The part that makes me go, yeah, the part that was the turning point in that game that made Zoot, a permanent fixture in my character history that I look back on and smile, was when we were speeding away from the Empire.
Not exactly the Empire. All right, this is a quick story. I'm going to go ahead and... I was the...
All right, yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to indulge, go ahead.
Because they need it for... Essentially, they were fighting a rogue splinter group of a new government on Korriban. For anyone who's a big enough Star Wars nerd to know where that planet is, I did a little changing of the thing, don't worry. They were fighting a rogue element on Korriban, and those guys were using wheeled speeders, essentially jeeps. So they'd been dodging them and ducking them through the desert on a land speeder. And... eventually they came across like this impassable sort of cavern with one way through it, and the guys had parked their wheeled speeders across it. I made like a roadblock that the land speeders just wasn't going to get around. Now tell your story.
So, I'm driving. Going as fast as possible. Little sound was as loud as it could be.
He's the only non-Jedi in the party. The rest are Jedi, and he's driving because he's the only one who could drive a land speeder.
So, yeah, I turned to the rest of the party and I'm like, okay, you guys can, move stuff with the Force, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, could you all maybe pull on the front of this vehicle as hard as possible? Just all at once, real quick, because I don't want to fly off into the stratosphere. So, bam, 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 they all made their rolls, and we... instead of crashing into that blockade, suddenly out of nowhere leapt into the air and over them.
Full E.T., they could cut to, one of Korriban's moons behind them as they flew.
Dukes of Hazzard level shit where the guards are just like, whoa.
I even took a moment as a DM to stop and talk about how the guards were watching them go over their heads and completely mystified.
So, I mean, we crashed on the other side and, drove off, and it was beautiful. We made it into safe territory. That togetherness really cemented that character for me. That, man, sometimes I just pick up on a character I fucking love to death. And
can I get an example?
There was a lot of interactions on this one, so it's a little harder to pin down than the absolute thing that Zoot was, which I liked him as a character too, but he's very two-dimensional, let's be perfectly honest. He was mostly a Patrick Warburton impersonation. He was Brock Sampson.
Yeah, he was the was it, where is he from? I forget. Swedish Murder Machine?
Yeah, Swedish Murder Machine. He liked Space Led Zeppelin and
Space Zepp, as he put it.
He had a tattoo of Space Icarus on his arm, which was just the Led Zeppelin Icarus, but with a space helmet.
Like a 1930s Biff Bomo space helmet.
But yeah, it was just fun throwaway two-dimensional character, whatever. I liked him, but it was just one-note joke. Guillaume Dace, who I played in your Dragon Age campaign, where we went looting through the underground. I just like that dude. I just like going in his little head and trying to find out what would be the most profitable avenue to take shit. Like
that is what it feels like to have an internal life for
right, yeah, no, I understand exactly. And just exploring through there. Now, I did have some good interactions. We frequently play with my mom, because my mom's cool like that. And she was playing a big, beefy, bruiser, muscle kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Big human warrior.
But we had a very good, relationship. In terms of, like, he was like, I'll follow orders, boss. You make all the shots, and I'll hit them. And it felt like really good camaraderie. But more than that, so much more than that, was just being this character, stepping into those shoes and being like, yes, now I get to think about the quickest way to make money off of this magic crystal shit that I am stealing from the dead.
Because as an old, as someone who actually is not very fond of old school dungeon delving style RPGs, in that, the old school D&D, you dive into the dungeon, you go back to town, you sell your crap, you buy better gear, you go back to the dungeon. That's not, you gotta have something else there for me. I can still DM that very well. So I DM'd a campaign that was essentially, you go to the deep roads from Dragon Age, you gather your shit, you go back to town, sell the shit, buy better gear, go back to the deep roads. Just very, old school D&D sort of feel, because that's what my players wanted, and it's actually, like, I understand why people did that shit back in the day. That is dirt fucking simple to DM.
Yeah, you don't need any grand plots or anything like that. Just make them wonder what's behind the next door. Put fucking Legend of Zelda, you need the big key to get through here shit, and then fucking hide that key.
That's all I did.
We'll stare at that door and be like, I want what's on the other side of that.
And that's all I did, is just old school dungeoneering stuff. I made them make maps. I made them, like...
I like making maps, so...
I don't mind a campaign where one has to make maps to keep around. I don't mind navigating maps and, trying to backtrack and find out what we missed. I hate the physical act of map making. Because in my campaigns when I was a kid, that was my fucking job. For some reason, I was the guy who got to do that. I fucking hate the physical act of map making now. It'll suck me out of the game so fast.
I liked doing it, but I never got to. Which always blew my mind, because I was the rogue. I should be the one making the map. I'm the one opening all the fucking doors. But the dude who was playing our mage was always like, I got this. And he did not got this. It's the short version. What about you? What separates those characters for you from just being a character I played to, oh yeah, that guy?
You know what? Honestly speaking, so at this point, the vast majority of my role-playing game career has been with you and Brandy.
Sure.
So the best way to describe this kind of eludes me. It's characters whose story arcs, they don't have to be complete, so long as they were really, really good. Not necessarily the plot of the campaign, the overall, story of the campaign. Characters whose personal story arcs were very good. Gave me something to chew on.
Like, compelling.
Yeah, very compelling. Miles, for instance, in his protracted fall from grace. Paxton, and the opposite, the redemptive story arc I did there.
Well, and even we're in the middle of it, but many of Laz's issues...
Because Laz got daddy issues, okay?
But
Laz got some severe daddy issues.
And there's like a lot of moral stuff and decisions with the character. You like your characters to be challenged, and the ones that are challenged the most, whether they triumph or fail, that's what sets the hallmark for you.
Yeah, just something compelling on a personal level for the character, because if there's that, regardless of what else happened in the campaign, I always have that to go back on. Because at the end of the day, I'm kind of a very immersive, I'm a very immersive role player. I like to get as far into character as I can.
Oh, same.
I'm not fucking method about it, because that's weird.
Sure.
But
You're saying you've never put on your robe and wizard hat?
no, and I also have never refused to be called to the table by anything but my character's name or whatever.
I am Gustavio now.
That's weird. But I like to get into character, and a nice, compelling personal story arc for the character is just the quickest way to get me into that.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love Jim, and I do, he doesn't stand out as much as for me as like Miles or as what was the name of this character always escapes me, but I'll get back to it. But as Miles, the very next character in the same campaign, because Jim's personal story arc wasn't as compelling.
No, well, he was kind of a fake person who just wanted to pal around with people.
He's not he wasn't a very genuine guy. Very good at lying to people. Lied to pretty much everyone in his life constantly because he had a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
And he, his whole big thing was learning to be honest with at least one person, and that was his love interest. And that's not as compelling a story for me.
You know, I hate to argue this, but I don't think it was his love interest.
No, it was John.
Let's be perfectly fair.
He lied to his love interest constantly.
It was his giant Indian buddy.
And yeah, that was the one person in his life he could be really honest with. And
John was not. He was like verbally judgy, but he wasn't. He was like, "I do whatever you're doing."
Yeah. Teddy is another one of my characters that has ultimately a strange but compelling personal story arc, and this is someone who, for a fair part of this campaign, for the whole campaign was a necromancer. For a fair part was like an undead. He became a lich at a certain point.
Yeah.
The big personal thing for him was him coming to terms with his own homosexuality.
Which you didn't even know about.
He didn't.
Yeah. I think we've mentioned that before.
The character didn't tell me he was gay until fucking 60% through the campaign.
Until we ended up going to visit your mom for reasons I don't rightly remember.
No. And she asked me when, in character, the mom asked me when I was going to have kids, and then Teddy went, "Oh, God, I've never told her." Never told her what, Teddy?
I love Teddy. Teddy's one of my favorites, definitely. I love throwing him in as an NPC. I love it when he makes an appearance as an NPC. And I think that's a great way to tell the hallmark of a good character. When
they show up later.
And it's a kudos to you, Gilgamesh, my version of Gilgamesh, who I played in a post-apocalyptic campaign, has concretely showed up in one other campaign as an NPC, and I have inquired about his whereabouts in one of the campaigns that's ongoing now.
Yep.
So sometimes you hit those right notes, and that's the long and short of it, I think.
Yeah, there's more we could talk about. I've made this joke 3 times now. I'm gonna make it again. We could just tell stories about player characters pretty much the whole night, but I want to play Batman Arkham Knight.
I got some shit I'd like to do as well, but it's always nice to sit down and share our experiences and ideas with you. And if you guys want to share your experiences and ideas with us, there's a comment section, and both of our Twitters are in the description.
And if you tweeted me, that might give me an excuse to actually use my Twitter more than once a fortnight.
More than retweeting something that Stone Cold said that you're like, I agree with this.
Indeed, I will give you a hell yeah in the form of a retweet.
Whatever you have to say, whether it's something, really insightful, or it's just, hey, you guys are cool, or hey, you guys are tesuck, tweet it right at us.
I can't. All I can think now is waiting for someone to say, hey, you guys suck, and then just replying with, come at me, scrub lord, I'm ripped.
Alright, well, that was a really good segue, though, and I really need you to finish the show.
But it was so fun. Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Thank you.
Fuck it, let's get hardcore!